My name is Eugene Wyatt, and I started driving 18-wheeler trucks in the beginning in 1968 in California. From there I got laid off when wintertime came because I was hauling asphalt. I come to El Paso. We covered the 6 southwestern states, hauled a variety of petroleum products and agricultural chemicals. We hauled asphalt, acid, fuel, jet fuel, anhydrous ammonia. That company went bankrupt. I went to work for Groendyke Transport, which is another larger tank line, operates out of Oklahoma. Then I got cross-threaded with the manager of Groendyke. One day I took a load of fuel to a local flatbed trucking company. By the time I left, I was working for the flatbed trucking company. But it was not a good company to work for. Roadrunner was a good company. And I worked for them for 7 years. Part of the time I worked there, I went long haul for about a year and covered 48 states. I went to a town in Ohio one time, and an entire factory took about 45 or 50 trucks, flatbeds. An entire factory loaded up, hauled itself to Mexico. That's very common now. They're called maquiladoras in Spanish. American manufacturers are manufacturing their product in Mexico, then trucking it up to the border, and then American trucks deliver it wherever. That operation has made El Paso a major trucking center.
Is there a lot of talk amongst the people who work as drivers about how different companies operate?
Oh yeah. The bigger the company, usually the better it is to work for. The highest paying trucking companies are car haulers and boat haulers, especially if they're union. And also most drivers, if they're going to live in a truck, want walk-in sleepers. Walk-in sleepers have TV, stove, refrigerator, nice bed. Very few drivers want to run double.
Is that 2 people in the cab?
Yeah, 2 drivers. So that way the truck doesn't stop. The truck runs 24/7.
Yeah.
2 drivers. And it's very difficult for 2 adult men to live together in a confined space of cab and get along with each other. It's very common for people to buy their own truck and become independent operators. And they do it for a year. Before that, the 40 years before that, they were military or teachers, but they always wanted to try trucking. So they buy a truck and they become truck drivers, but they find out it's not what they really wanted. So you get a lot of trucks a year old, 100,000 miles. 100,000 miles is nothing on an 18-wheeler. They're good for 2 million. There are some big companies that mostly want owner-operators, and there's even some that mostly want husband-wife teams are more reliable.
One of the things that people ask me a lot is, do I listen to music while I'm walking?
24/7.
And what do I think about?
Winning the lottery. Everybody has a CB, and some truckers prefer just to talk to each other constantly. And those talking books, that's fairly common.
Where are some of the good stations?
There's one in Phoenix, it's terrific. Michael Bolton, that type of music. ABBA, Fernando.
Yeah.
I first heard it on that station in Phoenix.
Before you started driving professionally, have you seen a lot of the country?
I grew up in Montana, and I joined the carnival there and followed it and went to Canada and around Montana and Utah and down to Phoenix, and I hitchhiked home. And then another year, I was a bum, so I caught a freight train in Montana, rode it back to Phoenix, and joined the carnival, the same carnival, but this time followed it north.
Was this as a driver? Or?
14 years old. Yeah, I drove. On my very first trip, I joined in Kalispell, Montana, and they gave me a gasoline-powered tractor pulling a 38-foot trailer. I drove it to Missoula, but partway down there, the engine vapor locked on a hill. And I kept thinking, if I could start it in reverse by popping the clutch, no one would know. Instead, I ended up jackknifing it, and the trailer totally and completely blocked the highway. I've ridden freight trains throughout the West quite a bit. I was wintering in Seattle, almost, and I caught a freight train. And I rode a freight train from here into Mexico, but I got to Torreon and realized I was totally out of my element. I couldn't speak Spanish, I didn't have enough money. I was rapidly losing the money I did have, so I decided to come back to El Paso, but I got on the wrong train. I went into Torreon on a train from the north, so I got out of it. I left on a train in the north. But as soon as it cleared the Torreon yard, it made a big curve to the east, went over a mountain range, went to Monterey. And then I got down in Monterey. It was this in the middle of winter, January. It had been snowing on a mountain pass. It was rain and colder and hell. And that Monterey rail yard is the largest rail yard I have ever seen. But this guy that spoke English, and was very proud of the fact he spoke English, took me by the arm, took me to this shed where they went in to get warm. They give me taquitos and mezcal. Got me all warmed up, put me on the right train to Texas.
Huh.
So it's actually a positive experience. And my very first experience ever was with this guy that we came to Phoenix during the carnival, and he told me, among the things you do and don't do, you never catch a cart near the front of a train. There's a lot of mines, farmers in the middle of nowhere, and they receive empty cars. And they have picked up the cars. So if you get an empty car near the front of the train, you might wake up in the morning and you're 100 miles in each direction, nothing but desert and a siding. So you always catch one near the caboose. You always make sure the door of the freight car can't lock while you're in it. The time we came from Montana, the first time, it was snowing and blowing, about 20 below in it. There was no empty boxcar, so we rode on the outside of a tank car into the night for 2 or 3, 4 hours, hanging on. There's a railing goes all the way around tank cars, hanging on like that. And you'd think you'd fall off, but you don't. Your arms never let go even when you're asleep. And finally the train stopped somewhere in some town up in the mountains in Utah, and we had a hell time letting go, trying to make our arms work, climbing down, legs won't work. And here come this guy, a brakeman, checking in the brakes. And we talked to him if he had any empty boxcars at all. And he said they didn't, but he said, I'll tell you what, you got to promise me you're not going to touch anything. Go up and get in the rear engine, climb up in the rear engine, nice and warm. So we rode into Salt Lake in style.
When you were first starting to travel these long distances, were there places that when you saw them for the first time, they made a really big impression on
The
you?
Mississippi River. That's my first great experience in the type you're talking about, and I was just enthralled. You've never done it before. It's a memorable event. Some of the most vicious roads are the most interesting. There's one out of Cortez, Colorado, where we were hauling asphalt for about 3 or 4 months, and you went down one hill sharp curves, cross the bridge, go up another hill sharp curve, and there's no way you can make good time, but it's interesting.
What's the common duration of a run in something like this?
There's no such thing. Produce haulers probably haul the longest runs. They go from the southeast to the west coast a lot, back and forth. When I was driving, you were allowed to work 60 hours a week. That could be in 7 days or 5 days, or it might even be 3 days. But when that was, then you're supposed to wait until you had hours again. Roadrunner trucking in our terminal did not run legally, in the sense that they would load you and you had to deliver the next day in California. You can't deliver. You can't go from El Paso to Los Angeles legally without stopping. But we did every time. So we kept 2 logbooks. You'd go to the river, Ehrenberg, Arizona. Truck stop, pull in there, change logbooks, make sure that when you're starting it had the right numbers and the right load numbers, and take off and go to LA. But then in LA, it would take all day to unload and reload, and by that time, both your logbooks were caught up.
Yeah.
But you hadn't any sleep. You're supposed to come on back home.
What are the ways that you cope with that?
Well, I coped with it by having an accident, cost me my leg. I fell asleep, ran in the back of another truck on a hill. I was in really bad shape. My legs, this and the bones were all hanging out, and they tried to put it back together, and they finally got it back together, but they couldn't make the knee work. I've had more than 20 operations. I don't know exactly. But finally, they got me back together enough that they were done operating. So then for 7 years, I stayed drunk, because all of a sudden I wasn't the same me, and I wasn't happy with it. And then I realized that I can't do this. There's no future. I'm going to kill myself, among other things. I was still good from here up. And I had went to a college in Montana one semester one time. Got 3 A's and a B. So I thought it was fun. So I decided to enroll at UTEP. So anyway, I graduated and I looked around to see what kind of work I could do. I decided to join UTEP's alternative certification program where I could teach. You have to find your own first job, and if you work for a year, then they make you a certified teacher. But they wouldn't me, probably in combination my age and disability. So I went back after 2 years and got a master's degree, but I still can't find a job. I've written a 400-page book, and I'm trying to get it published.
What's the title?
Until You Get It Right, The 70-Year Odyssey of a Square Peg. But I still dream about trucking.
What were some of the best things about it?
Well, seeing the country, sitting up high. And one time in Phoenix, I was on a city street off to going somewhere, and I remember pulling up behind his car, a man and his wife full of kids, and it was night, and my lights obviously were blinding him, so I pulled up behind, I turned the lights off, and he waved to me. See, so that made me feel good.